Hey, good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon. Hi, Patrick. How are you? Thanks for being here. I'm always a few minutes late. Sorry about that, everyone. But if you've been to my live streams, you know that's kind of par for the course. But anyhow, yeah, I didn't. I went to bed kind of late last night, and I just got up like within the hour here. But yeah, lots of exciting news this week. If you weren't here on the Thursday live stream, it's fine because that's why I do it twice, is because Thursday's kind of at a different time slot and Sunday's mornings for me. So hopefully more of you can come in and participate because I always like hanging out with everybody, like minded photographers and particularly Olympus fanboys and girls, right? Hi, good morning, Stefan. How are you? Hi, Hulu. How are you? Huluthek, I think. Lukathek. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I can't pronounce everyone's name. Kostov, how are you? Captain Chili Bones. Wow. Thanks, Chili Bones. I appreciate it. Yeah, I get. Hi, Jaron. I get kind of mixed uh, feedback on this live streams, meaning mostly positive, right? Like everyone likes kind of coming in and hanging out and just catching up on what everybody's been up to and maybe some things I've kind of learned this week about Olympus cameras or cameras in general. Because even though I don't always post a tutorial during the week, I do try to go out and shoot or practice some particular technique or learn something new. And I think this week I discovered a couple of things that I wanted to try and turned out to be true. So I'll talk about that. Well, let's talk about the release of the EM5 Mark III and the 12 to 45 lens. I wanted to kind of touch on that because that's big news, right? And also, I have a collaboration live stream coming up next week on Thursday with Matty Salanto. He's returning. And also Emily from Micro Four Nerds. So it's going to be more of a Panasonic theme. And I'm only going to stream two guests because it was kind of a little bit too much load on the bandwidth here that I have. So I want to try to improve the user experience and the audio. But also hopefully get a little more out of the guests, a little more structured, I hope, this time. So we'll see. Good morning. Hi, I'm just seeing who's come in. Well, a lot of my regulars. It looks like a couple of new people. I don't remember seeing Eddie before. But maybe you've been here before. Who's here for the first time ever on one of my live streams? I'm just curious. I mean, it's still early. There's only about 30 people here now. But I set up a couple of. Hi, Alan. How are you? I set up a couple of keyboard shortcuts so I can kind of jump back and forth. A little easier too. I know nobody cares about this, right? But see, I can just kind of tap a button now and go back and forth, which is kind of cool. I also put a shortcut for a mute button because I had pizza last night. I just can't handle it like I used to. But anyhow, I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes for some more people to come in because I wanted to talk about a couple of things. Oh, Eddie, I'm sorry. Yeah, you have, Otis. How are you? Robert? Saffron, wow, you did some band photography last night. That's cool. What did you use for your camera and lens? I'm curious. I would, if I had to guess, I'm gonna guess. Don't tell me yet. I'm gonna say you took EM1 Mark II and a 45 millimeter f1.8, maybe a 75 f1.8. that would be my choice if I went to do a band at night, which I plan on doing. Not like for real, like they paid me to go there, but you know, just I wanted to do a photo walk in Alexandria, and you know, just walk into some of these dive bars that have bands and get a few shots. So, uh, anyhow, Jaren's saying the 12 to 45, it's being trashed by the 35 millimeter crowd on DPR. You mean, I guess in the forums? I haven't been in the DPR forums lately. I'm curious. Because the 12 to 45, you know, I like I said, if I didn't have a 12 to 40 Pro already, I would probably seriously consider that lens, even though it's an f4. That's the only thing that would kind of hold me back. But the retail pricing at $649 is pretty reasonable. Now, I thought what was interesting is DP Review, you know, Jordan and Chris over there compared it against the 12 to 35 f2.8 from Panasonic, which, you know, it's a little more expensive lens, but it's spec-wise, it looks superior in almost every way. Particularly the being at an f2.8, which, and being about the same size and weight, right? But they found that the 12 to 45 from Olympus was a little sharper in the corners, you know, especially stop down, whereas the 12 to 35 didn't really improve much in the corners. And I don't care about corners myself, but that is one thing, particularly if you'd like to do wide landscapes. You want your corners to be sharp. The other thing, and of course in landscape, you're not shooting an f2.8 anyway, so the fact that it doesn't improve on the Panasonic as you stop down is a little bit of a concern. And that would be a deal breaker, right, if you're hardcore into wide angle. The other thing is the close focusing distance was substantially better with the Olympus model. So you could get, you know, like you could almost fill the frame with just an SD card, it looked like, the way they were doing it, or maybe two SD cards. Whereas with the Panasonic version, you know, you're much further away, so you're not getting the same close-up photography that you would with the Olympus version. So that's interesting too. I mean, those are a lot of things overlooked by reviewers, and I thought that it was really good of them to point that out. Just tried my cough button. It looks like it worked. Let's see. So Severin says, oh, you took a G9 and a 17 millimeter. Awesome. So you must have been really close, Severin, to the band, because when I go, you know, I'm usually in the crowd, so I'm back a little bit, so I would want to get some closer shots. But that's, but a 17. Wow. Maybe you mean the 16 millimeter f1.4. I didn't know they had a 17 on the Sigma. But that's interesting. If you post some of those on the on your Instagram, I've come to think of it, I don't think I've ever seen your Instagram. Do you have one? Hi Sandeep, how are you? John is saying, I thought I'd tell you I got a used €20 mechanical stabilizer to use with my 8mm SLR Magic PL9. All of my wobbly corners are gone. Awesome. Awesome. Those mechanical stabilizers, I really like the idea of those, and the fact that you got it for $20 is cool. Because I looked at those early on. They were brand new, selling for about $80, $90. And it was just more than I wanted to carry, because I'm a vlogger, right? I have to vlog and take pictures at the same time, so it'd be kind of awkward to have a stabilizer all the time. If I was doing video only all the time and vlogging, with video, that would make a lot more sense. Oh, cool, Queenie. The M5 with a 12 to 40 Pro. That's awesome. That's an awesome combo. I would recommend you get a little grip for your EM5 though, because it's a little bit. Where's my EM5? Oh my God, it's right in my face here. But I think the grip is a little bit too small even for a 12 to 40 Pro. So you might want to get a grip. Unfortunately, there's no third-party grips out available yet, so maybe wait on that until there is, because I don't feel like the Olympus version, you know, is would, you know, it lacks the Arca Swiss plate on the bottom, which is something I really would want, you know, on my camera. And also it's plastic, right? I mean, it's to keep the camera light and stuff, but I don't like it. But congrats on that, Queenie. That's this EM5 Mark II is awesome. I was set it up last night actually. I'm gonna try a new profile that I've kind of programmed in and see how it comes out, because I was watching Nick Carver's video and he was testing a Hasselblad, right? 1DX, whatever the 100 megapixel version is. I don't know what it's called exactly, the model. But some of the images he showed on there, I really like the colors and kind of the look that was coming out of that camera. I mean, you know, crop in detail aside, you know, the 100 megapixels, the colors and just the kind of the look to it was really interesting. And it looks like it's a little bit muted. The colors are, I mean, he was in the desert, so all the colors are muted, but it did seem particularly muted and slightly lower contrast, kind of in the middle, but towards the peaks, the high end. So the tone curve was kind of interesting too. I mean, it's ridiculous to look on a YouTube video and try and figure out what the color grading is, but you know, they look good. So I'm gonna try something like that. Oh, good, Queenie, you got one. Got a grip. I have not heard that, Dion, that Olympus will be selling new lens lineups for under 500. But that would be great, because, you know, down the road, those lenses go on the refurb site for 20-30% below that. And of course, in the used market, even less. Because, you know, Olympus, they've been making lenses forever, right? So they got that nailed. They can make a good lens. Sandeep says you got the EM5 Mark III. Congrats. Good. Yeah, I started working on the menu systems. I've got 4 videos out for the M5 Mark III that go deep dive in the shooting menu 1, shooting menu 2, and the video menu. And then also I have a separate video that has all of my settings that I use when I take it out. So I was just surprised, even having Olympus for so long, how many things are in each menu, because I just kind of take it for granted now what these cameras have. But when you go back and really dive into it, there's so many things. Oh, Eddie, you got the ECG2 grip. Yeah, it's all plastic, right, Eddie? The ECG2 grip for the oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. The M5 Mark II. That's a metal grip mostly, I thought. I'm not sure. I'm waiting for a used one to pop up in the at my local camera store. Get like the HLD9 with it, so I can have the extra batteries and things. Because I've seen like the whole thing there cheap for like $80. I can get the vertical grip with the battery pack and everything, but they don't have any right now. So I'm gonna wait it out on the M5 Mark II, and I'm gonna wait out a decent grip for the M5 Mark III. You know, third party. And John's asking, what do I recommend for Arca Swiss quick release plate. I'd like to be able to just put it on and not have to recalibrate. Oh, okay. They have one that I bought. Let me see if I can find it. There's one that I like to use. Dang it. This is my box of quarter 20 plates, and of course it's not here. So I'll just do my usual. I'll just go into my Amazon account and look it up. But there is one that I found that I really liked. But you have to be careful of a couple of things. But I'll show you. Let's see my orders. Crap. Sorry, I wasn't watching my mic levels. I just talked for, I don't know for how long. Let's see. At 9:20 for 5 minutes, 6 minutes. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did that. What was I talking about? I was talking about shooting menu, not shooting menu, but the play menu on the M5 Mark III. That I'm working through it. There's just a lot of issues with that because it goes into Wi-Fi, it goes into printing, and I've never used the play menu, anything in there. I've never printed from the camera. I've never used Wi-Fi. Well, I don't want to say never, but I avoid the Wi-Fi function or connection. But the M5 Mark III has Bluetooth, and then I have to deal with the app. So even play menu, which is something I rarely use, still has a lot of features in it. So I'm going to get to that next. Profanity auto off. That's funny. Okay. You know, it's funny. I was doing a live stream with, or I was watching a live stream with another, his name's Kevin. I forget the name of his channel. But he, I asked him, why do you wear headphones, on your live streams? Because I never wear headphones, right? And he said, well, that's because sometimes the sound cuts out and I won't know unless I have my headphones on. And here we are. It happens to me. And I was like, just couldn't understand it. Now I get it, Yeah, the audio stopped when I went to the Amazon purchases. Okay. Oh, hey, Leon. How are you? There's another Leon on Instagram. He recently posted a picture of some trash at a park, I think. Was that you? Are you the same Leon? Oh, thanks, Sandeep. I do have a link for my G9 fund because that is a camera I want. I just don't need it, but I am saving my pennies now. This is the other thing. Oh, well, we'll talk about the M53 in a minute, or EM13 in a minute. Hi, Andres. How are you? But there is a hold on. I did some testing this week between the Panasonic 12 to 32 kit lens, this one here, and the 14 to 42 kit lens, the manual one. Comparison, right? I just wanted to see, because people would ask me which one is sharper, between the two, and I always felt like the 12 to 32 from Panasonic was a little sharper, but I never did side by side, right? Because unless you do exact same camera, exact same scene, lighting, etc., you're not going to be able to tell, which one is sharper. But intuitively, or just my feeling was it was sharper. And after testing, I found the 12 to 32 is sharper. So I tested it against, I tested it, hi, Adidas, that's funny. I tested it against the 25 millimeter Olympus Prime. I tested it against the Olympus 12 to 40 Pro. And I tested it against the 14 to 150 kit lens. All of them at 25 millimeters at f5.6. So, I mean, it's a very limited test, right? I mean, they're all at sort of an optimal aperture for sharpness. But I would argue that the 12 to 32 kit lens from Panasonic, this little pancake lens, was just as sharp as any of those lenses I just mentioned. at f5.6. And what I did was I used high-res shot mode to really push the lens's, resolve power. And then when I punched in and I compared everything, I was like, oh my goodness, this lens is pretty awesome. So I can't, I'll have to do a video on this lens and talk about how great this little lens is. I mean, other than the speed, because it's a kit lens, it's a little bit slow for doing night photography. So you have to keep your ISOs up or your shutter speeds long. But with the M5 image stabilization system, I can keep the shutter open quite a while, handheld. So I think it's going to work. It's working out really well for me. I'm so glad I got this lens, and it's the smallest, lightest, most compact lens of all the ones I mentioned. Substantially so. Okay, Leon. Yeah, I remember talking about the M5 socket being bad. Oh, a link to the tripod plate. Sure. Let me do that for you. Arca. Oh, wait. Orders. Arca. And this is the Arca plate. All right, there you go. There's a link. It's an affiliate link for USA, but that's the exact link. Oh, hi Rick. How are you? M43 community, Panasonic, Olympus are like brother brands. Yeah. Yeah, so I've been brushing up on my Panasonic stuff too. With my GX85. I left it out. I left it out in the other room. But I was trying the 4K photo mode with the post-focusing and stacking. I watched a video by Maddie Salanto blog. And he was showing how you can do photo stacking, but he was saying that he was getting errors, and it's hard to see on the TV. I usually watch YouTube on TV. What kind of errors he was talking about, because they all look good. And the 4K photo mode, photo stacking only gives you an 8 megapixel image, but I think just for fun, it's perfectly fine, Oh, hi Chuck, how are you? Glad to have you back. It's always good to see everyone here. So happy. So that was about the 12 to 32. Hopefully the mic was on when I was talking about that, but that's a really good lens, and a lens that I want to really probably do a video on, comparing them against all my other lenses. Because, it's a lot of times when you see people talk about lenses, they're in a bubble. They're only talking about that one lens usually. And not against like prime lenses, especially, right? Or pro glass. And it makes a difference, right? If it's always like, what are you comparing the lens to? Because in a bubble, the lens is great, But when I compare a kit lens against a pro lens, and I have a few videos like that, excuse me. People need to know, is it worth spending $300, $400, $500 more for pro lens? Because maybe you don't care about depth of field, but you do need more light. Or maybe you don't care about, the weather sealing. Is there a reason to buy a pro glass lens? And so that's why I do it, and that's why I really love this little Panny 12 to 32, and the GX85 is growing on me. I'm starting to get a feel for the shooting now. It's very limited compared to Olympus in terms of deep diving and customizing. It's very limited. It has some capability like the Olympus, but not to the degree that we can do with Olympus, and that's why I just I just love Olympus so much because of how much you can customize and really get into the camera and do things. And I'm reading here. Hi, John. How are you? 65. You're so lucky. And the pancakes, you can't put the adapters on it. I thought you could. I know the one adapter you cannot, like the fisheye and the wide angle, which I really love that wide angle. But now that I have a 12 millimeter pancake, I don't need it as much. God, what the heck was I talking about before I got distracted again? I keep doing that. You know, I just hate to jibber jabber on for a long time when everybody's like asking questions and things. But I did follow some advice from Rick there. He said I should put like a little guy on my camera to have something to look at while I'm talking, because it is awkward to talk directly to the lens, right? Like I'm not talking to you guys sometimes. It feels like I'm just talking to my camera. And so I appreciate that. That was a good idea. But funny, does anyone know what this is? Who this is? I forget the monkey's name, but where's it from? This little guy? Just a little trivia. Leon's asking, question on the live chat. I can see your face live, but feel to have at least my face on the live chat. Do you know how this can be done? Old age. Are you asking about your little thumbnail icon? You know, that's right here. I don't know if that's what you mean. That's something you have to do on your face or your YouTube channel, and you click on your profile picture and you can update it. Eddie L, the GX85 menu. What's the question there? Did you want to? No, John, that's not right. Okay, Leon. Yeah, that little icon. You have to go to your YouTube channel. Go to your own particular, because when you open up a YouTube account, you get a YouTube channel, and you can start posting videos. But in there, you click on your picture or that thumbnail, and it'll ask you if you want to upload a picture. Data says, I learned a lot, and one thing that annoys me is half pressed in the button. Example for setting exposure. I put the camera to spot and I want to set, and trying to fumble settings, I lose it. Trying to, I put the camera to spot and I want to set it and try to fumble. Okay. I think an alternative might be is if that's how you want to shoot all the time, you might have to retrain your muscle memory to use back button focus, which will also lock the exposure. So play with that. Maybe, I forget which camera you have, but the settings are the same in all the Olympus cameras. Is you need to play with this setting here. Under the autofocus menu, the AEL AFL, and then that dives into the single point autofocus or continuous, so you can set it differently for each focusing mode. And then in here you have mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, which will dictate the behavior of the shutter button or the back button. So look into that and see if any of those options might work for you or help you with your workflow. I don't have a problem with half pressing because now my muscle memory is really tuned to that. And it's amazing the consistency between the Olympus cameras that half press, the pressure. I like that the half step is pretty soft, but the full step has 2 or 3 times the resistance. So there's a big difference between half press and full press. But then, like on my Fuji and Panasonic, the half press and full press, there's very little difference between half pressing and full pressing. The resistance is equal. So I found it's very easy to take a picture when I only meant to half press. Whereas on all my Olympus cameras, half pressing is just a very light touch, but to take a picture is a full press. And, you know, the only challenge with that, right, is you might introduce a little bit more motion in the camera, not visibly to the naked eye, but, you know, internally to the camera. So thank God we have terrific IBIS, right? It's not Donkey Kong either, Roberto. The little monkey. I'll show it again. I can't believe no one recognizes this guy. Okay. The monkey's name will come to me. I just can't remember the name of the monkey, but I know what show it's from. Let's see. Dion's saying that the Pani kit lens worth to buy. He's asking, is the Panasonic kit lens worth buying to change the Olympus kit? The only reason I'd buy, and well, let me rephrase it. The reason I bought the Panasonic kit lens is because I needed the 12 millimeter focal length. And the kit lens is 14 millimeter. And then when I put the wide angle adapter on it, it's, you know, it's not bad, but it's a little bulky compared to the Panasonic. Because I did, for a while, I did buy this. I bought the wide angle adapter, which just goes on the front, and this gives me an effective 11 millimeter. But you can see just the difference in bulk between the two. So if you want the 12 millimeter, yeah, definitely buy this lens. I wouldn't buy it just for the difference in sharpness. It's not enough for that. And you can buy this lens for about $150 or less. You know, used, right? Brand new, this like $300. And the way I got mine is I bought the GX85 together with that lens for $325. So I got a deal on it, right, with the camera and the lens combo. But I was looking at buying this lens, and it's very light. It's only 70 grams and very compact once it's, you know, retracted, right? So you could easily put your camera in a coat pocket. So it's a great lens. And it has the same filter thread as the Olympus kit lens, so that you can, if you have filters for this, you know, you're good. You can use them on either lens. So if you need 12, I would get it. If you don't need 12, then yeah, it's not worth it. Heck de la Cruz, are Godox flash compatible? Yes, they are. They work fine. Eddie's saying, I don't believe it's worth the upgrade one over the other. Yeah, if we're talking about image quality, it's not worth spending an extra $100. Maybe, you know, sell the kit lens from Olympus to buy that one. But it depends on the camera, because you're going to lose. Okay, let me talk about a couple of things you lose. When you use a Panasonic lens on an Olympus body, if it's one of the contrast detect only systems, the Panasonic lens does not focus anywhere near as well in video. It's very, very slow, painfully slow. But on the phase detect, like the EM5 Mark III and EM1 Mark II, it's perfectly fine. It's not quite as good as the Olympus in video, but it's you know, it's fine. But it's not good on the contrast detect system. So if you do any video, the Panasonic lens is going to be a problem on Olympus cameras that don't have the phase detect. Um, Rick is saying that link doesn't look right. Which plates were you silently talking about? I thought it was those plates. It was that plate. Let me double check my link. Yeah, that's the one, near fishbone style. Yeah, this one right here. That link works. I think. All right. It's not Donkey Kong, Roberto. Sorry. Let's see. Hi, Archie. How are you? It's not Curious George. Let's see. The ProCapture L doesn't work if panning on Ollie. Yeah, you could lose. And Ray is saying there's purple blob problems, and then you lose ProCapture. Really? I didn't notice I lost ProCapture. Let me try that. I mean, I don't like to use ProCapture. Again, because I'm not a wildlife guy anyway, but let's see. Do I have I probably turned ProCapture off. I know high res works. Yeah, I turned ProCapture off. Hold on, let me go back and turn it on. So I need to go into display menu, go down to shutter settings, turn ProCapture low on. All right. Okay, ProCapture low comes up. It comes up on the super control panel. It's hard to see because of my green screening, but ProCapture low's on with this lens. Let me extract the lens. Let's see if it stays on. And then all right. Oh, wait, I didn't have the lens attached properly. Let me double check. Settings. ProCapture low is on. Yeah, I lost ProCapture when I put this lens on. So that seems like... Let's see if that's unique to that lens. I have another Panasonic here. Wow, yeah, you lose ProCapture when you use Panasonic lenses on your Olympus camera. So thanks for that. Didn't know that. Good call, Ray. And I know you lose focus stacking. You get focus bracketing, but you do lose focus stacking as well with Olympus lenses. So you lose some of the special features that are on the Olympus cameras, and I'm sure the reverse is true. Let's see. Hi, Rob. Took my EM5 Mark III and Pro 12-40 to a political rally. Waited in a steady... Camera got soaked. The Olympus handled the rain and low lighting inside. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. The Panny 7 to 14 issues with purple blobs on the M1 Mark 1 when pointed at a point. Yeah, the 7 to 14, Jose, definitely has purple blobbing. That is a problem. And I used that lens for a couple of years in my real estate photography, and I had to work around it. You know, I had to make sure there weren't points of lights. And those times that I couldn't work around it, where I had to get that particular angle with the purple blob in it, I made sure I did the best I can to make sure that purple blob was just on a plain area, like a solid white wall or whatever, or like on a patterned sofa or something, where the purple blob can be brushed out of Photoshop easily. So I would say 10% of my shots, even with all of my, even with the, you know, being aware that it's there, 10% of my shots were still hard to fix with that purple blob. So I switched over to the 8mm Fisheye Pro. The M1 Mark III seems to have a plastic body as well. It is not. It is exactly the same as the M1 Mark II. But I'll get my hands on one here in a couple of weeks, I'm pretty sure. Because I'm going to go to a live event with Joe Edelman. And, you know, hopefully there'll be that one there. The camera will be released by then. I think the release date is the February 27th here. So Pro Capture High works. Okay, good. On the Panasonic lenses. That makes sense because Pro Capture High only has to lock focus one time. And so it probably can do that, but Pro Capture Low, you have to continually focus. And maybe that's where the Panasonic lens kind of falls down. It doesn't have the same algorithm as Olympus lenses do. And you'll find that a lot in the firmware updates. You'll see compatibility issues that they can correct, but they can't correct them all or fix them all. And apparently Pro Capture Low is one of them. But maybe there'll be a firmware update to correct that. Who knows? But I don't know why Panasonic or Olympus or Panasonic would bother. They want people to buy their own brand glass, right? Yeah, the purple blob question was about Pana on Ollie body. Some have experienced. I'll have to try and see if the GX85 gives me the same purple blob that I get with my Olympus. Because people are saying that it doesn't exist on the Panasonics, the purple blobbing. I don't understand how that would work, because the purple blob is a characteristic of the lens, right? That it seems like too big of a problem to correct with any kind of software. Yeah, I don't know, Ray. I don't know if the 8 to 18 has that issue. I think it's unique to the 7 to 14. But yeah, I'm not going to buy an 8 to 18 anyway. It's kind of too big a lens. I'll you know, Olympus makes a great 7 to 14 that you can get. If I look at the spec, it clearly says plastic for both the EM1 and EM5 Mark III. Okay. I can't imagine that they would change the body because it weighs the same. It didn't lose any weight as far as I know. If Robin or Peter were here, they could tell you firsthand because they've had the camera in their hands, or Jimmy from, you know, Red 35. Oh, hey, Andres. No, we haven't really talked about the M1 Mark III. Oh, the link, John, the link that I gave was for, I think, John. He was asking about an Arca Swiss plate or adapter for his mechanical gimbal. And I was pointing to one that I thought made more sense because of the clearance of the knob and stuff. Olympus's new 8 to 24 f4. Yeah, that would be kind of nice. That would be a lens if it's a, yeah, it's rectilinear, so if it's in the $600 range, like, you know, the 12 to 45, then I may get that lens for my real estate work. Because I love the fisheye. It's the only lens I need 99.9% of the time when I do my real estate jobs. But, you know, having a rectilinear lens that I can zoom in and eliminate some of that, you know, wide angle distortion. Because what I do now is I carry my 8mm fisheye pro and my 14 to 42 kit lens. And I just, some shots I use the 14 to 42 kit lens because, you know, I can get tighter with less distortion, etc. I can frame better, basically. But an 8 to 18 would resolve that. I'm sorry, not 8 to 18. What was it? 8 to 24. That would resolve it, going all the way up to 24mm. Because I rarely need to zoom in more than that on my kit lens when I take it out. The Leica 25 f1.4 has bad purple fringing on Ollie, but I've not seen any purple blobs. The Leica 15, no problems at all. Okay, good. Fortunately, purple fringing is easy to fix in post, and they have a Leica 25mm f1.4 in used for like $2.99 over at the camera store. So I might. No, I'm not going to get it. I got so much gas, it's terrible. I've always wanted that lens, but I rarely use the 25 f1.8 as it is, so I don't know what I would do with an f1.4. It's probably better to get the 25 f1.2 from Olympus at 3 times the price. I don't know. Okay, Peter's saying he's not having any problems with his 8 to 18 on his EM1 Mark II. Yeah, I think that that Olympus fixed that. I'm sorry, that Panasonic fixed that particular issue on, or doesn't have that particular issue on any of their other lenses. And Jose's saying on the GX85, the 7 to 14 purple blob was not an issue. Okay, I'll have to try for myself. For your real estate job, are you self-employed or work? I'm self-employed. Yeah, I do it on my own. You make more money that way. Because, you know, I've seen jobs for, you know, there are some pretty large real estate photography businesses in my area. And they pay their photographers like $30 per shoot, you know? It's like, come on, you know? That's ridiculously cheap. I wish Ollie or Panny released a small ultra wide for vlogging. The Laos 7.5, but quality control seems a bit hit or miss. You know, the 8mm fisheye pro lens, I've seen it for like $650, $700, but I used it for vlogging once, and it's pretty awesome because DaVinci Resolve, which is not the free version, but the paid version of DaVinci Resolve, has fisheye correction, and it corrects it beautifully, and it's so wide. You know, the 8mm fisheye, that would be the solution. And 8mm fisheye is not that heavy. I think it's only like 200 grams. So it's a decent lens, and being at f1.8, it's really fast. So I was, if I ever get the paid version of DaVinci Resolve, I just use the free version now. I will start using the 8mm fisheye for my vlogging because it's you know, it's wonderful to have that wide angle of view, right? Ray's saying the 7 to 14 is more expensive than the 8 to 18. Okay. I have to look at those There was some reason I wasn't interested in the 8 to 18. I can't remember why. But I'll wait for the Olympus version, the 8 to 24 f4, because that's pretty solid. That gives me a little bit more reach. 8 to 18 would be just enough. I could get by, but if I had an 8 to 24, that would definitely cover two lenses for me, my kit lens and my fisheye lens. I mean, the less lenses I need to bring on a job, the better. But I always bring those two lenses on my job with two flashes, my Godox 8200 and the TT350. And I rarely need to use the TT350 on a job. The 8200 does fine. How long before I felt confident that I it wasn't like I waited. I got a couple of jobs because one of the contracts that I had, because I had a long-term contract where I did not photo work, but it was more computer related, tech support, some consulting and stuff, marketing. And while I was there, the owner of that business had some real estate deals, buying and selling his commercial property for new offices. And I told him, I said, hey, I can do the pictures for your job, for your agent, right? And I told the agent, I said, and the way I started, I said, I looked at the agent's website of all his properties, and I told him, because I had no experience in real estate photography, but I knew the other person I had a contract with was buying and selling his offices, and he did this quite a bit, not quite a bit, but enough that I was like, this might be something I can do for him and his agent. So I went to the agent's website and I said, hey man, I can do, and I built a rapport with this agent as well, because I was a consulting, right? I was consulting the business owner as well. But I told the agent, I said, there's 5 properties that you have. He had about 20 listings, but I said, these 5, I said, I'll do these 5 properties for you for free. And if you like the images, you're happy to use them, whatever, no cost. If you don't like them, then it doesn't matter, It was, so he was kind enough to let me go to these 5 properties, and they were all vacant, just up for sale. And so I got a lot of practice. I said 5 because I didn't want to just do one building and say, okay, I'm ready, right? So that's how I built up my skill set or confidence that I could do this job. So it took me about 5 buildings, and I picked the 5 that were very different. So like this one office had furniture and lots of artificial lighting. Another office was just totally gutted. It was just a gutted space with lots of open windows and mixed lighting, and so on and so on. One was a townhouse type building, which had stairs and was in a tight space. So I picked 5 buildings that would sort of represent a common, theme for commercial property, and they turned out great. I can do much better than I did back then. And back then, that's when I was using my 7 to 14 panny. So I went out and I bought a 7 to 14 panny wide angle, and I used my EM10 Mark II because that's the camera I had. I did have my Nikon D750 and 20 millimeter f1.8 that I used on one of the buildings. And then the other 4 buildings, I used the EM10 Mark II with the 7 to 14 panny. And they came out pretty good, much better than what he was doing, the agent himself, because the agent was just using his, the agent had a Canon with a wide angle lens. But of course he had no concept of, getting his lines straight, getting the best angle, the height and leveling and, everything that I do with architectural photography. So the pictures, just without considering the lighting, was awesome. And then I did some lighting, and I watched a lot of Rich Baum and Nathan Kuhl's videos about post-processing. I didn't do any of those techniques at the time because they were a little bit too advanced for me at the time. And then from there, I would go to these, the agent introduced me to other brokers, and I went to broker meetings, got my name out, etc. So yeah, that's how I got started. And, my photos are always better than the photos the agent was taking. So they were happy to pay me for those, but that's how I got started. So anyway, just a little story about how I got started in real estate photography. Okay, so let's see. Let me back up a little bit on the text. I tried the fisheye on the 5.3 correction. Amazing. Yes, it is awesome. The only trick is the 8mm fisheye correction in our cameras only produce a JPEG. But I do have a video on how to correct it in post-processing with RAW files, and that's how I process my real estate photos. So check my 8mm fisheye videos, and it'll be one of those. A fisheye for vlogging has problems, in my opinion, or at least have at the moment. When walking, the ground bounces up and down, very distracting. I didn't notice that, actually, because the Olympus, when you use the digital image stabilizations, it corrects a lot of that. But I was vlogging at night, so the background wasn't that noticeable anyway. But that's a good point. I'll have to try and vlog with 8mm in the daytime and see how bad it is, if it's bad at all. Oh, Eddie's saying the 8-18 is a little big, but the quality is excellent because it's a Leica. Yeah, I might have to look at that lens. I don't know. Right now, I'm very content with my Olympus. And I don't know how much the 8-18 is either. Anybody know how much the 8-18 is? I'd look it up, but then I'd probably lose audio. Okay. You recommend a histogram display 245 and 10 shadows. Tim Boyer recommends 253 and 2 to stop overexposing the highlight shadows for better ETTR. Well, at the high end of the histogram, I got a drawing tablet, and I'm going to do that in my live stream soon, where I can actually draw things and explain a little better during the live streams. But I would still go plus 10 on the shadows. 253 is probably, that's too tight too, because on the high end, the information on the high end is very limited. So I grab as much as I can at 245. At 253, it's a little bit too small. And then on the low end, I think plus 10 makes sense, but plus 2 is fine. If you're not, because normally you don't have to pull shadows too much. You're more worried about clipping, right? For ETTR. And, you don't have to worry about the shadows. So plus 2 is fine. So that the plus 2, I think, makes sense. I think the 253 still is a bit too conservative. I would stay at 245. But I think the plus 2 on the shadows is fine. Andres is saying that he hopes they replace the Olympus 9-18 because the 7-14 is too big and expensive. I agree with the 7-14 kind of being too big, and it is expensive. Too expensive is relative. I think it's worth every penny. But it's too big, definitely, and more than most people would want to spend on a wide angle. The 9-18 is such a good lens. I don't know why they would replace it, but I think the 7-8, the 8-24 f4 coming out would be the replacement for the 9-18. And it's going to be weather sealed, and it's probably only going to cost a little more than the current 9-18. So I'm pretty excited about that. Mark saying the Laowa 7.5 f2 is good. I like that lens. I think it was designed, it comes in two forms, right? One is a lightweight version for drones, and the other one is more of a metal version for cameras. So I don't know which one is 150 grams, but there's about a 50-gram difference between the two. But yeah, I've heard good things about the Laowa. I think what's his name over there at E6 Vlogs, he bought a Laowa and really liked it. Hi Torgear from San Francisco. I just set up a Keystone comp on the LNFN. Okay. That's one way to do it. That makes sense, right? Window pulls is something that would be good for video. Oh, hey Robert. Yeah, that's Nathan and Rich Baum have great videos on window pulls. I don't know what I could add to it that they haven't already done. I mean, I guess because I'm using Olympus, I could be more specific with the window pulls, but that's a Photoshop tutorial, really, right? Not so much has to do with Olympus. That video I did on exposure, where I exposed for the window, then I exposed for the flowers on my table. And that's very similar workflow to what I do in real estate to bring the windows in. Then from there, but instead of doing it in one shot, I do it in 3 shots, and then I bring it into post-processing and layer them. And at that point, it's no different than what Rich Baum and Nathan Kuhl does. So the 818, thank you, is 997 on B&H. Yeah, that's a little pricey. I mean, if it was a little bit, like I said, I want to see what the 8 to 24 is going to cost. Laowa, the lighter one's more expensive. Okay. Torgear is asking, what are window pulls? Window pulls are basically when you have 2 images of a let's say a kitchen, right? And one image exposes for all of the stuff, the countertops, the cabinets and things. And then you have a second picture that's exposed for the windows, right? So that you can see what's outside. Because if you expose for indoors, the outside, the windows are all going to be clipped out to white or very bright. So you take 2 pictures, and then in Photoshop, you merge them back together so you get the windows and the interior. I mean, long story short, that's all there is to it. And that's why I can't switch from Photoshop and Lightroom to, say, Luminar or any of these other third-party photo editors, because none of them let me layer like that, like Photoshop. Not one that I found, anyway. Okay, Roberto. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was a good video. I liked how that one came out myself, actually. I should do more videos, right, on exposure and difficult lighting situations, because that's something I deal with all the time in real estate is really difficult lighting situations, and most of that is solved by taking multiple exposures and merging them in Photoshop. But not everybody has Photoshop, right? We're just using Olympus Workspace, for example, or any third-party software. None of them have that layering ability. And I've tried to experiment with HDR in camera, focus stacking in camera, multiple exposure in camera, where I could maybe do that in camera, that sort of that balancing of light. but nothing has worked as well as the method that I showed in that video. Not even close. So, but we'll see. You know, I still need to practice, right? There's always workarounds that someone's going to figure out, and be able to do more things in camera, right? So that's something I'm going to continue working on, because I can kind of get there in some situations where it's very close to doing something in Photoshop when there's extreme exposures like that, right? But I'm not quite there yet. I'm worried about Leica quality, as some other manufacturer lenses with Leica branding aren't manufactured to the true Leica quality standard. It's possible. I mean, maybe Olympus is just buying the Leica brand and not really using the Leica manufacturing quality, Leica quality. Who knows? Because a lot of brands that you see, they're not really that brand. They're just being licensed that name onto their own gear. So that's why, like, when I see Carl Zeiss lenses on Sony and I see Leica brands on Panasonic, it's not necessarily the same thing. So Roberto says exposure, white balance, and metering is the hardest thing. Yeah. It is tricky. I've always wanted to do a full tutorial on exposure and white balance. Because I finally, everything clicks to me now, where if I take an exposure, I'm able to get exactly what I want out of the camera. But that's because I now have a good feel for the three things in the exposure, right? ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. And like I said, I've never said my pictures are any good, but when I take a picture, I get exactly what I wanted out of it. And whether I want to crush the shadows more, or if I want to bring the highlights down more, or whatever exposure I'm going for, I'm able to get it in camera and just dialing exposure comp and controlling other things. And it's so dynamic, though, it's hard to make a tutorial. So that's why that one tutorial I think is a good first one for exposure that I did, where I used flash and windows and stuff, because that was for a very specific kind of scene, and it works well for those kind of scenes. But that's not something you can do outside, right? When you have extreme problems with exposure. So I'll have to pick another scene and say, okay, for this kind of scene, this is how I handle this. So I'll have to give some thought. Right now it's just freaking cold. I mean, it's been, in terms of Celsius, it's been below zero for the last couple of days. It's cold. I don't want to go outside at all. Torgear is asking, am I full-time? Yes. I mean, I'm full-time, but it's part-time money. I mean, I charge appropriately for what I do, between 150 and 250 per job. Some are a little more than 250, but none of them are less than that, right? And yeah, it's all I do. I mean, it's I could make it full time if I wanted to go out and really pound the pavement every day. Like next week, I have another meeting for where I'm going to meet some new brokers. But you know, I I don't know. I'm just getting lazy. I don't know why. It's sometimes just it's really what deters me from doing more real estate jobs, because I can get enough business that I'd be out there every single day, is I just hate dealing with traffic. It just stresses me out. So I don't want to, I just can't do it. So I take the jobs when the weather is good, you know, in terms of lighting. You know, I tell them, and that's the nice thing about commercial real estate, is you have a much bigger window or cushion to work with in terms of weather. If I was doing residential real estate, you don't have that window. You have to be out there same day, next day to get the photos done, and that's just too much pressure. So I've been sticking to commercial. The flip side is uh, there's not as much as demand in commercial real estate, right? Because commercial real estate is more of a, usually the buildings are gutted, and whatever business is going to buy it is going to refit the property to their needs anyway. So they don't really care what it looks like now. So there's not as much demand in that respect. But yeah, it's basically it's all that the bulk of my money comes from real estate photography, and then I have these side jobs I do once in a while that are not photo related in terms of tech support, like computer stuff, and those are far and few between. I get those maybe 4 or 5 times a year, but it pays enough that but anyway, so yeah, it's all I do. I don't have like a regular 9 to 5 job, uh, other than this YouTube channel, which I should do 9 to 5 and treat it like a real business. But for me, this channel, like I said, if you saw my 100th episode, this channel was really about just sharing my photo journey with everyone. And when the weather gets warmer, I'm going to do more photo walks and things again. But anyhow, okay. Oh, hey, John. So you're going to get the Pixco 8mm? That's a fun little lens. Yeah, I like it. I have it over there somewhere. I like to take that out instead of my Ollie 8mm a lot of times because it's so compact. It's just a little tiny lens. And the quality is fine for just casual enthusiast stuff. Rick says, I think Leica are being paid to design lenses for other manufacturers, but they're only involved in the design phase rather than the whole QA. Okay. Yeah, the whole lens manufacturing or camera manufacturing is out of my scope. I have no idea. But that seems reasonable that they design the lens and then whatever Panasonic or whoever does the best they can to manufacture it to those specs. Thomas says, I heard it even less than that. Pani designed the lens and then they get approval from Leica. That seems very plausible as well. Like I said, they just buy the license for the name. And Rick says, I think Panasonic had Leica design their Leica branded lenses range, so Panasonic manufactured Leica lenses. A good discussion for Rob's upcoming. That's a good point. But I seriously doubt even, Emily or Maddie really knows the sort of the behind the scenes business part of lens manufacturing. Because ultimately we're all just photographers, right? But maybe, like I said, I don't know what Maddie's past is, but it seems like he's been doing photography for a long time, since the 80s, as a professional photographer, but I don't know what his business background is outside of running a business as a photographer. I worked in corporate America for many, many years, and I still have family that work in big corporate America. Like one guy, my brother-in-law works for Google. So, and he's worked at many companies, and he's at a pretty high level. So he has a really, we have conversations about what's going on in his companies that he's worked at over the last 20 years that he's been working. And it's just amazing what goes on. So Togir says, so the obvious alternative is product photography in your studio. Yes, product photography is really a whole different thing, though. It's not really, I wouldn't say it's an alternative. Well, I guess alternative is the right word, but it's not the same at all. Real estate photography and product photography is not the same at all. Conceptually they are, but in practice they are not. Product photography requires you're not worried about, uh, yeah, just very different. Product photography, you're focusing on one little object at different angles, right? So you still worry about perspective, but in product photography, color is very critical. Whereas in real estate photography, it's not as critical. So you have a color workflow in product photography that you don't have in real estate photography. Lighting is also very different too, because usually you can get the lighting correct in one shot. So you don't have to worry about blending and window pulls and pulling up shadows and, etc. So the workflow is extremely different between product photography and real estate photography. Primarily in the color workflow, you have to have calibrated monitors, calibrated cameras, calibrated flashes. I mean, calibrated printing. It's like it's an entirely different workflow. If you're just doing low end product photography, like you want to sell something on eBay, like there are photographers that do product photography for people that sell a lot on eBay. That kind of product photography, yeah, that workflow is a lot simpler, but hardcore product photography is not a small thing. Hey, Roberto's asking, he said he did an adjust reset, but still feels that intuitively the shot is level. The gauge always says I'm off center. No, it's not you. I noticed on my EM10 Mark II, the level was not very precise. And there's a difference between precision and accuracy. And let me talk about that. I got to turn the heater on because I'm so cold. Anyway, sorry about that. I should have wore like a coat. Anyhow, so precision is like, I guess the easiest way to explain is like if you weigh yourself on a scale and you get on the scale, and every time, and let's say your true weight is 150 pounds, and you get on the scale and the scale says 155 pounds, right? And you get on the scale 10 times, and every time you get on the scale, it says 155. So that scale is very, very precise, but it's not accurate, right? So that's precision. If you get on the scale 10 times and it says 151, 149, 150, and every time you get on, it's off by about 1 pound. Every time you get on the scale is not very precise, but it's very accurate, right? Relative to the other scale. So there's a difference. So I found that the precision is not quite there on my EM10 Mark II. It's fairly accurate, right? But it's not very precise. So I have to tweak it a little bit compared to my EM1 Mark II, where it's both very accurate and precise. But I tilt it one way, then the other way, so I get a bar on either side, and then I try and pick what's in the middle, and I have to kind of feel for it. But usually it's straight enough that if I have to correct it in post, it's only it's only like 1 degree, right? But on the EM10 Mark II, I found that it was typically 2 degrees, sometimes 3 degrees difference than what the camera says is level. It's not. So yeah, I don't know. I've never gone through the trouble to test something that's perfectly level, because I never have to be that precise in my photography, because it's easy enough to fix in post. Rob, can you please add the question of Leica's involvement? Oh, okay. I will. Where's my pen? Oh, here. Leica involvement with Panny. All right, that's a good question. Hopefully Maddie knows. That's funny, Torgar. Thomas says the 10 to 25 f1.7 seems to be the lens, though. I'm not even familiar with that. Oh, that's the new Panasonic that's like this big, right? Oh my god. And expensive. It's like $1,500 or something. It's some crazy amount. And 10's not wide enough for me if I'm going to spend that kind of money. For my work, right? For my pro work. Yeah, Stuart says all about lighting control for highlighting the product. Yes. Yeah, lighting is easy though once you get it though. You just get a light box and either use artificial lighting or use a flash. But the color has to be right. You don't want to buy a red tie and then you get it and it's pink, right? So color workflow is really critical. Yeah, and product photography is also creating a certain look and demand. Yeah, there's a lot more in product photography. I don't do it, so there's a lot more in it. Because sometimes you got to have the product in a model's hand, you know, for demo purposes, and there's a ton more marketing if you get hardcore into it. Oh, so Wikipedia says that Lumix are branded Leica, although Leica does not manufacture the lens. So it goes back to, you know, they're just buying the license. You're welcome, Roberto. Stuart says use a bubble level. You know, the problem with a bubble level, because I bought a few. You know, I bought one of those 3-packs. Maybe they sell higher quality bubble levels. It's going to be impossible to see. But when I put a bubble level in here, sometimes the springs inside the grooves here misalign the bubble level, so it's crooked. Because the hot shoe, the male part of the hot shoe on the bubble level is not thick enough to fit in here nice and snug, and then it ends up going crooked because the spring on one side of the hot shoe is not as strong as the spring, and it's just a leaf spring. It's not like a coil spring. Is not as strong as the one on the other side, you know, just over wear and tear. And I found my bubble levels were crooked when I put them on, so I never used them anymore. It's very easy to see on the Pen F because it has a really large leaf spring in it. I don't know if you can see that. There's a leaf spring. Well, anyway, look at your own camera. You'll see it. And that was the challenge I was having. Was I wasn't getting it even. I'm sure there's higher quality bubble levels, but after that, like I said, I've never had to be that precise. And I usually have a trigger or something on my cameras that I wouldn't be able to use a bubble level on my hot shoe anyway. I usually rely, like in landscape photography, when I do that, I rely on the bubble level on the tripod. Torger says, should I be suspicious when amateurs make pronouncements about Ollie versus penny lenses? I have the Ollie Zoom Trinity. They seem pretty great. Yeah, they're awesome lenses. Olympus does not make a bad lens for the money. Like I said, some of the primes are worth more than what you're paying, and then And then the Pro glass is worth every penny that you're paying, in my opinion. They're expensive, but you're getting quality glass. So yeah, I don't know what you mean by amateur, but definitely don't worry, you got awesome lenses there. It's just hard to find. It's when you find a cheap lens that's excellent, like the 45mm f1.8, excellent lens that you can get relatively cheap. Those are like the really great ones. And the 40-150 kit lens is an awesome lens that's cheap. And that's what I mean by Olympus. Really, you get your money's worth, and sometimes more than your money's worth. Roberto says, just did adjust the zero level to the current position and set it to what I think is level. I've never played with the auto adjust. When I do the auto adjust or reset it's not auto adjust, it's reset. I don't know, I don't play with it. I just reset the levels on the camera sometimes, and just like I said, I can correct 1 or 2 degrees in post-processing for my pro work. Ray says, hi Rob, sorry if I missed this part. Was disconnected in between. Any tips about handling distortion that's a 7 or 8mm crates for hanging lights? No, not really. Like I said, what I do is I just make sure that you're talking about distortion, not the purple blobs. Not really. I did see an app that did correct for that pretty nicely about a year ago. I didn't end up buying it because I wish I knew what it was, why I didn't buy it. It was like $100, and it corrected the kind of distortion that you see with very wide angle lenses, because you know how things get really long or look like a lamp, right? A round lamp, if it's too close to the lens, it starts to look more oval because of the not fisheye distortion, but rectilinear distortion on wide angle. And the software did correct for that pretty nicely, very nicely, in fact. So it's a software solution. There's not really anything you can do when you're actually shooting. The best you can do is I just make sure the camera's perfectly level, you know, both tilt-wise and pitch-wise, yaw and pitch-wise. And then I try to make sure that the camera is about halfway between the ceiling and the floor, so that the distortion from anything on the ceiling is exactly the same as the distortion on the floor, so that I get equal distortion. So the more symmetry I have in the image, the less weird it looks. So position the camera like if you have an 8-foot ceiling, you would put the camera at about 4 feet, so that the distortion is the same top and bottom. And then of course side to side. When I shoot corners, you know, I try to shoot 2 walls instead of 3, so I can also manage that distortion. So, you know, a room has 4 walls, and the fisheye lens, you know, can capture probably 3 walls in a lot of the smaller rooms. So I try to position the camera to point center to the center corner wall, or to the corner, and equally capture left to right and top to bottom, and then that overall distortion doesn't look as bad. That's all I can recommend. And if I do end up capturing 3 walls, because sometimes you can't help it, right? You're going to capture 3 walls with an 8mm lens. Then I still pretend or frame it like I'm only going to take pictures of 2 walls and then crop it in post. So there's a lot of on the spot thinking or considerations that I make when I take a picture. But those are the 2 main things, as I try to create symmetry in the image, left to right and top to bottom. And the top to bottom, you put put the camera dead center when you can. The only time I don't put the camera like at a 4-foot level in an 8-foot ceiling house or a 10-foot ceiling house is when I'm in the kitchen and it has a center countertop. Then I have to go up higher, tilt it down, and then I do skew correction in post-processing. But even with skew correction, that distortion is going to exist because of the level of the camera relative to the ceiling height. Hope that helps, Ray. Oh, okay, there's an architect's level. Yeah, I knew there's better levels out there. But for me, it just doesn't, it's overkill for me. Rick is saying that he did professional work in product photography, and there's a lot of subliminal manipulation, psychological. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's much more to product photography. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more. I can only look at it from the technical side with our cameras, right? The workflow is very different than architectural. Rick says he wrote a graphic design photography degree thesis on symbolism in advertising. Benson and Hedges gold cigarette ads are the best examples. Okay, interesting. My dad used to smoke Benson and Hedges. Before he quit. He quit finally. John is saying, for bird and wildlife shooting, level adjust in the EVF is just a distraction. Yeah, you don't need the level in bird and wildlife generally. Sorry, let me just take a break here. I need to get my fingers warm and my body warm. I'm just very frugal with my heating in my house. Because the furnace in my house is it's an oil furnace from, God, I think it's from the 70s. This house was built in the early 50s, I think 1952. And our furnace was replaced sometime in the late 70s. So it's pushing almost 50 years old. So I try not to use it. Because to replace that, we're talking, big money. And I'd rather buy a camera. Oh. Speaking of which, couple of great things happening in the next 2 weeks on my live streams. Let me just take a moment to talk about that. The Thursday, I'm going to have Maddie Salanto from Salanto Blog and Emily from Micro Four Nerds on Thursday, 3:45 New York City time. And it's going to be primarily Panasonic based, but photography in general, but mostly about Panasonic cameras. And in 2 weeks, I'm planning to have Peter Forsgaard and Robin Wong back on March 1st on a Sunday instead of Thursday. And we're going to talk about the EM1 Mark III. Because by then, the camera will be released and for sale. So some of you may already have that camera. I may have it. I'm still thinking about getting that camera. I'm looking at crap I can trade in for it. So we're going to talk all about the EM1 Mark III and the 12-45 lens, because they've been using the camera and lens a lot more, right? Or already have had access to it. So we're going to do that. So look for that. I'm still working the details out. I can't promise that's going to happen on March 1st, but odds are it will. At least with Robin. I'm still working with Peter, and And in the live stream collabs, I'm going to try and limit it to just 2 guests now because, like I said, the bandwidth was kind of an issue when I had 3 guests on at the same time, or 4. I had 4 guests at one time, right? So I'm going to limit it to 2. And I'm also going to do more frequently or more random, I should say randomly, live streams with a guest and see who I can bring in. Because I'd like to bring in some more non-gear focused people, like landscape photographers, or maybe a macro photographer or portrait photographer, people that are in certain genres, and talk about their photography. And obviously there'll be Micro Four Thirds users, but it won't matter what brand to me at that point. It's more about the photography. And maybe even some channels that don't have, that don't use Micro Four Thirds gear. But we'll see. Those will be a little bit more random, but more consistently, once a month at least, I'm going to try and have a 2-on-1 collaboration. See, Rick, and oh, thank you, Roberto. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, I can feel my fingers again. But Rick and Torgear has experience, professional experience in product photography. You know, high-end product photography. So, or advertising. And you know, that I've never been in professional high-end advertising or marketing. You know, I've done small business stuff, and of course conversations come up about the high-end stuff, but not actual work, right? Just casual conversations like we're having here, but I'm talking to people that have a lot more experience. And so I just have a casual knowledge about it, but not to the degree that, say, Rick and Torgear has. John says Olympus was going to use the CP Plus show in Japan for a big rollout of the M13, but the show has been canceled due to oh wow, the coronavirus. That's too bad. That's too bad. But I don't know how much impact the trade shows have anymore on launches of cameras, right? It's really up to their overall marketing scheme to promote their gear. And sorry, I'm reading again. You know, like I really don't know, but YouTube seems to be, and it's because I'm on it every day, but YouTube seems to have pretty good influence on the camera industry. But I don't know in what measurable way it really is influential on the camera industry. That reminds me, I was watching Frono's Photo. You know, he has those breaking news alerts or whatever he calls them. And he said, and you know, he's talking about the Canon and Nikon. But in the middle somewhere, he says, oh, and Olympus released a new camera. And then he had his little meme or clip saying, who cares? I was like, oh man, that is cold. That is cold. I wonder if he must have had a falling out with the Olympus back when they gave him the EM1X, because he was supposed to do a review on that camera and it never came. So I wonder if there was some drama there between him and Olympus that he would be so mean to just say, who cares about Olympus? That was cold. And I don't take Casey over Camera Conspiracy. I don't take what he says about cameras seriously at all, right? He's just about entertainment. But when Fro, with 1 million subscribers, goes out and says, who cares about Olympus, that's pretty harsh. And I don't think he would say something like that unless there was some falling out. But because he did go to the Olympus event, and you know, with the M1X, and had all the lenses, and he was given the opportunity, but it didn't pan out, and he never talks about Olympus. And the only time I've heard him talk about Olympus recently was like, who cares? So that was anyway. Not that it matters. I care. I love Olympus. Maybe you can. James pops us as a guest. I have been in contact with James, but he travels so much, it's hard to get him scheduled, you know, or booked, so to speak. But I am trying. Him and Red35 and Peter. You know, the ambassadors seem to travel a lot more. You know, at least James does. He travels a lot. So does Peter. He travels a lot. So it's hard to get those two scheduled properly, and that's why I struggle a little bit. But I did reach out to James, and he's you know, we've been in touch, but the scheduling has been an issue. As you know, if you watch his channel, he goes to Iceland and all kinds of places, right? Oh, Manuel's getting sold his M Mark II and pre-ordered a Mark III. Awesome. Awesome. And Thomas says he feels like YouTube influences people's decision more than the show. I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, I don't know what the metrics are though with YouTube versus the trade shows. I'm sure Olympus and Nikon and Canon, they know. They probably have metrics on that, but it's hard for me to I mean, I just don't know. On the table, but as well as imagery of liaison, there's hope, signified by bright dawn sunbeam breaking through the clouds. Oh, okay, we're talking about the whiskey bottle. Fro had published a vlog about the event and took it down. Oh, so it's gone. I did watch it. You know, he was there in his usual big personality self, right? Entertaining enough. He was a little harsh on it, though. But I saw that vlog. I didn't know he took it down. Maybe Olympus asked him to, or whatever. I've never known Fro to take a vlog down. Yeah. Hopefully they make up, you know, and he can. Because, you know, as a photographer, he should really appreciate all different kinds of cameras, you know, for what they are. You know, Tony does a better job at that. He puts out his clickbaity thumbnails and videos, but ultimately he doesn't really trash any particular camera format. He looks at them in their own right, in their own space, you know. And yeah, we can disagree about his conclusions, but I think he's been fair, and really does try to give a fair perspective on various cameras. I mean, he'd certainly, you know, everyone has their preferences. Like, I prefer Micro Four Thirds over full frame, but I don't try and make clickbaity titles and push Micro Four Thirds like it's the end all be all of photography, like some channels do. You know, they're like, yeah, shoot Sony, shoot Nikon, shoot Canon, whatever. Nothing is better than that. Or whatever, you know, whatever they're trying to push. Because I can appreciate cameras of all brands and formats. Maybe Olympus didn't like his preview video. He trashed the M1X. He was harsh on the M1X. But he said that up front. He's like, this is a $3,000 camera to compete with, you know, $5,000 and $6,000 cameras. So I'm going to be harsh on it relative to the other, like the D5 and 1DX models. Fro just wants to blow out the background all the time. Yeah, that's what he likes. He likes that, you know, if he's going to deliver a photograph to a client, he wants to be able to separate the background via background blur. And then also the he didn't like the grain at all at higher ISOs. And so, you know, it's just not the right camera for him, which is fine. He wasn't that harsh on it. I mean, he was a little harsh on it, but he wasn't. He was hard on it in the sense from a full frame user's perspective, but I didn't, like I said, I really liked that video that he made. It was honest, you know, and if it doesn't and that camera is exactly the kind of camera, the M1X, that, I'm sorry, Fro is the exact kind of photographer that the M1X was supposedly targeting to try to, you know, bring over some full frame users, right? Potentially. Not exactly that kind of photographer, but there was certainly within the scope of the type of photographers they were trying to capture. And they didn't win him over at all, you know. If anything, he hates it even more now, right? But that's okay, you know. It's not for everyone. Watching Joe Edelman last night, he had some great comments on people why wasting their money forever demanding bigger sensors. Yeah. Yeah, Joe is awesome. I mean, Joe is the other photographer, right? He was a full-frame Nikon user for years and years, and he tried an EM1 Mark II of his own accord. You know, the Olympus didn't approach him, as far as I know. And so I don't know what motivated him to try something else. He did explain that. I just can't remember what it was. And he flipped. He says, you know, Micro Four Thirds is enough, and now he's all in, right, on Micro Four Thirds. And I'm gonna go meet him here in about 2 weeks, so I'm excited about that. Hopefully, I'll get some FaceTime with him. And that's mainly why I'm going. It's a capture the light or capturing light event, where it's more like portrait photography orientated. So I'm going to go to that event, and I'm going to try and live stream that event if I can. I'm just having a bandwidth issue on my phone. You know, I have a limited plan on my phone. So I need to find a Wi-Fi signal. So I'm working on that. And if I can get the Wi-Fi worked out at the camera store, they might let me use their Wi-Fi, or I might be able to get a hotspot, you know, through another client, and get a secure Wi-Fi spot. So I'm going to do that. So that'll be on the 27th, I believe. It's a Thursday, 7 p.m. my time is supposed to start. So I'll either just do a vlog and then post it the next day, or I'll try and live stream from the event directly. Oh, hi Siegfried, how are you? Always good to have you here. I appreciate it. I was amazed to see the specs on the D6. Very underwhelming. Yeah, it didn't seem like anybody was too impressed with it. And it's just a symptom of the industry in general, right? It's kind of plateaued a little bit in terms of overall image quality and capability. And I mean, it's a good time to have a camera because they're the best they've ever been. But everybody's expecting, you know, everybody's expectations have been set so high over the last, you know, 5 years, because of the processor development and every, you know, feature sets, etc. But it's not like anything's really changed in the last 5 years. You can take a full frame camera from 5 years ago and it'll perform, you know, for all intents and purposes, as well as a full frame camera today. You know, focusing aside, focusing has been the biggest improvement I've seen you know, in the last 5 years is how well a camera focuses. And Olympus has been there the whole way. Sony's really kind of taken the lead on that in some ways. You know, Canon had their dual pixel, and Nikon has finally caught up. They're still not great. Their DSLR autofocus is, you know, renowned, but their mirrorless autofocus is still catching up. You know, Canon has nailed it with dual pixel, and now Olympus with the M1 Mark III, that autofocus system seems to be even better. And it was really good already on the M1 Mark II with the new firmware. So, yeah, so it's unfortunate that on one hand we have these terrific cameras, but on the other hand, there's great cameras from 5 years ago, right? So the urge to, or the necessity to upgrade is not there, and it really never has been. Siegfried is saying, are we familiar with the EMVA 1288 standard? I am not. I have no idea what that is. Yes, Olympus is underrated for sure, definitely here in the US. I thought for a while in Japan it was like the #1 selling mirrorless. I think it's dropped to #3 here in the last year or two, but it was #1 for a while. EMVA is interesting for general know-how on how the sensor works and to have better info on inform heavyweights push. Yeah. Thank you, Siegfried. Yeah, share a link. I'm sure a lot of people will be enlightened when they read that, right? And that's why I never let sensor size really be a factor in my purchase decision. If I see a camera that has certain features or ergonomics or aesthetics that I like, I will buy it. 50% because I have a bad gas disease, but the other half because it's really a, you know, the kind of image quality you can get from a camera is really dependent on the photographer, not the camera, right? The cameras are all very good regardless of sensor size. Oh, so you bring up the DX6, the D6 in comparison to the M1 Mark III. Seems like the M1 is playing better. I think so. I think it's a better camera. I mean, there's definitely people like, you know, Jared Polin that will disagree and point out all of the things that he did like in his EM1X video. But ultimately, you know, it's what you deliver to the client. Do you get paid, right? That will be the final benchmark of if that camera makes sense. I don't know. It just those are very high-end cameras that I'm not really just don't interest me ever. You know, whether it's the M1X or the D6 or 1DX, those are cameras that just interest me not even a little bit because they're so big and heavy. Now the M1 Mark III, I am very interested in at this point. Oh, I need to change permissions to post links. Really? Let me see. I don't see anything here. Live stream settings. Watch me get disconnected. I don't see any settings. I'll check that next time though, and see for the next one. But just do a Google search on EMVA 1288, I think, and you'll find a link for it, I'm sure. Nah, John saying Tony's 2019 award gave the M1X for best and worst camera. I think I saw that video. I can't remember. Like he gave it most innovations, but then knocked it for something else. I don't know what. Siegfried says, I dropped the YouTube presentation. See that and go to the website. It's really great info. Okay. I'll check it out. You always have good references whenever you do your articles. And let me see if I can find it. EMVA 1288. Oh, this is pretty recent too. But here's a link I found. Let me know, Siegfried, if that's the correct. If I'm sending people in the right direction. Ultimately, there's many. It looks like there's a lot of videos on it, but Jerner says, I think also was the Panny and other 35 millimeters were crushed by the Ollie. Okay. Costa's asking, what's Olympus's next strategy? An EM1X Mark II with 2 TruePic 9s. I guess since they have the basic infrastructure of the camera design down, they could just drop 2 TruePic 9s in, but what features are they going to add? I've never been able to post a link in chat, forbidden by chat members. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know you couldn't post links. And I don't see a setting here that lets me allow you to post links. So, I mean, I play around with it more right now, but I'm afraid to disconnect the live stream. Let me check one more place. It says allow chat replay, allow chat, enable chat, moderators. Automated filters. Yeah, I don't have block links checked. It says here, new comments with hashtags and URLs will be held for review. So I don't have that. I don't have that blocked. So you should be able to post links. Under the social tab. Yes, that's the guy. Okay, thank you, Siegfried. Go to the website and see what papers and presentations. Okay, very good. And if you guys don't know Siegfried here, he has an excellent blog on Olympus cameras. Let me see if I can find that. I know I bookmarked it. I could have sworn it was right here. Oh, I can't find it now. I got like 1,000 bookmarks, and then when I add one, I may not put it in the right place. Well, anyway, sorry, Siegfried, I can't find it right now. But go to MU43 forums, and then you'll see his posting on ETTR or Exposure for Olympus, and then from there, there's a link to his blog. And Roberto saying, in your movie mode tutorial, what is the best to use, P, A, S, or M? It really depends on lighting. I would say 50% of the time I just shoot in P mode for my vlogging, or A mode. Probably the other 50%. I rarely use shutter or manual because the lighting when you're vlogging changes so fast that it's just best to let camera do all of the heavy lifting on the exposure. Now in controlled settings, like I'm here in in my for live streaming, I set it to aperture priority, or I'm sorry, I set it in full manual because I can control the aperture, shutter speed, and frame rate. And so in a controlled situation, I shoot in manual. So what's best really depends on your case use. If you're vlogging, if you're in a studio, etc. So there's not really a best setting, but if you just want to casually take a video time to time at random, then I would probably just shoot in P mode. If you're not that critical about having that cinematic look. If you want a cinematic look and you want to take a little bit more serious effort in the video mode, then you're going to want to shoot in full manual and control all of those settings, and in addition to color, and then do post-process. I mean, you can get really carried away in video. I feel the EM1X is peak camera for all users unless they improve the on-sensor AF quality, not the software AF. Yeah, I'm a little bit taken aback, technically what's really controlling the autofocus. Because to do eye detect, face detect, it has to read the entire sensor and then by some software algorithm understand what a human face looks like, sideways, turning around, what the human eye looks like and all its variations. And then tell the camera to focus on a particular point. And when it tells the camera to a particular point, it has two ways to do it: phase detect, contrast detect. So the way I understand it, it uses phase detect to get to the subject quickly, then it uses contrast detect to lock in on a very, very fine point. But if you don't have the resolution of, say, 500 focusing points, how does a focusing point at 121 have the resolution to pinpoint on the eye, if that's even how it works, right? So it's a little beyond me technically exactly how autofocus works in very tight, very where you have to be extremely accurate and precise at the same time. Oh, isn't there a Sony MFT 47 megapixel micro four thirds sensor out there? I think I saw that. So yeah, I believe there is one. I remember seeing a link to it. I didn't look into it too much. But even if it exists, most likely it's for a very special application, not for consumer level cameras. Because it might have an extremely slow read rate where it wouldn't be, it's probably a very specialized sensor, not for consumer level. Because Sony makes a lot of sensors that are not consumer level related at all. But they're still camera sensors. They're just not for the consumer camera. Studio setting cogwheel community. Okay, I'll look again. Because I did go into the cogwheel. And community settings. Yeah, that's where I went. I'm not blocking any links. Yeah, I just don't see anything. Big super sensor debate. Whenever a manufacturer adopts a new sensor, they have to regression test and rewrite all the software they've developed over the years. Extremely expensive, yes. Absolutely. Particularly if there is, you know, a different megapixel count, I would imagine. What would be a logical jump for MFT? I mean, maybe 24, but it's not necessary. I don't know how many megapixels 8K is, though. But I can't see 8K being mainstream at all. You know, if 4K is 8 megapixel, 8K would be 16. I don't really know. Or is 8K 4 times more? Then you would need to be at 32 megapixels. So I think Sharp had a Sharp came out with a Micro Four Thirds 8K camera, right? I haven't seen it lately, but I remember it was kind of at one of the shows. Ken, yeah, 2 hours. I know my live streams just go forever. I usually just go until the battery dies on my EM1 Mark II. Yeah, 8K at 33. Yeah, so 8K is 4 times 4K. So 4K is 8 megapixels. So 4 times 8 would be 32. So that makes sense. And like I said, I think Sharp has a Micro Four Thirds sensor. Okay, John, thanks for coming in. Panasonic's developing an 8K sensor. Okay. Xfinity is still using 720? Really? Wow. I mean, I watch on a little 40-inch screen from about 8 feet back. So it doesn't matter if it's 4K or 1080 or 720 for me. How come when you look in the viewfinder, it's not at the biggest aperture of the lens like on a DSLR? Is it always the same aperture? Yeah, the lens is always going to be... well, okay. So you're asking, like, if you have an f1.4 lens and you're looking through the viewfinder, why doesn't it stay at f1.4, right? Maybe it stops down a little at f2.2 or f2.8. That's because the autofocus system and the sensor can't take too much light. It has its sort of a oh my God. Now my vocabulary is failing me, so I that's what happens when we go 2 hours in a live stream. But you can't have too much light coming into the sensor, so that the lens will stop down dynamically to let the perfect amount of light into the sensor, so that the sensor and the autofocusing system work at optimal in that optimal range. Because if it's too bright, your contrast detect system's not going to detect contrast very well. Or if it's too dark, just like when it's too dark, the aperture has to open all the way wide open to let as much light in as can to have that contrast. or phase detect, right? So that's mainly why is it's trying to optimize the lighting to the sensor so that the autofocus can operate at its optimal range. So you don't want things too bright and you don't want things too dark. So the aperture will adjust dynamically. Normally, the aperture is wide open in most situations, but on a bright day outdoors, you will see the lens aperture stop down, particularly on f1.4s, 1.8s. The camera will stop the aperture down so that not too much light comes in so that it can get the best image and contrast. So somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that answers the correct question for Mark. I've been studying a lot on sensors. When you get into ISO and noise, I prefer Olympus open up more options on ISO for MFT, like dual ISO, so we can optimize the sensor rather than the new sensor. Yeah. Rick is saying, I like the possibility of videoing with my OMDs. I'd drop Olympus like a hot brick if I was forced to pay a high-end video tech I seldom use. It's a conflict of interest. Yeah, that's why I think Olympus should come out with different cameras, just like Panasonic, right? They have a GH5, a GH5S, they have a G9, all very different cameras. Olympus just doesn't really do that. You know, they're all photocentric cameras. But if they came out with different cameras, you know, they might expand their market a little bit more. Oh, before I forget, I was reading in Micro Four Thirds, the MU43 forum. Someone tagged me in one of their posts, and okay, thank you, John. That they used one of my tips about renaming the file system, right? So that the files save with a prefix, in my case 5EM. So whenever I'm shooting with the EM5 Mark III, I can sort my images, because I shoot with different cameras, right? Sometimes I got the Pen F, sometimes the EM5 Mark III together. And when I load the files onto my computer, I can sort in the file system directory by camera based on the file name. So I might call it Pen F as the prefix to the file name, or 5EM for the prefix on the Mark III, right? And he followed that advice because he thought it was a great idea. But then he was finding that when he would shoot in his custom modes, like he would turn to C1 or C2, he would turn the dial to C or select C2 or C3 through the menu on the M5 Mark III, that the file names reverted back to the default setting, like P something, right? So when he imported all his files, like half his files were 5EM and the other half were PF whatever, you know, the standard prefix is. And I was like, what? So I tried it on my camera and I'm like, he's right. So when you set up, if you're using custom file names on your EM5 Mark III, you need to save that custom file name in the regular photo mode, and then also when you save your custom modes, you need to make sure you set the file name when you save your custom settings. Otherwise, it's not going to save every file with that particular prefix that you assigned. Now on my EM5 Mark II and my Pen F and EM10 Mark II, the custom file name, the prefix stays regardless of what shooting mode you're in, whether it's a custom mode or a regular mode. So I never experienced that problem before, but he did notice that on the EM5 Mark III, that's something kind of new, where you can change the prefix of the file in a custom mode. So just keep that in mind. I don't know how many people use the prefix function of the file names where you can change things, but I do, and yeah, that never happened to me because for whatever reason I must have been programming it with the custom mode and the file name correctly. But that's something he missed, and I can see where it's something it's easily overlooked. Okay, thanks, John. I'll check the link in the forum. Oh, that's the other news is my forum's now working now. Hopefully people are able to sign in and make posts because I was able to get in. That was a pain in the butt, diagnosing. And I still don't know ultimately what caused the issue because in the end, I ended up just resetting everything and disabling certain plugins and deleting stuff plugin-wise, so that I had basically nothing interfering or nothing that so something I did in the settings messed it up, was conflicting with another plugin, or maybe it was the super cache, I don't know. Anyway, my forum's working now, so if you have any questions for the live stream on Thursday for Panasonic, that's a good place to post them. No full frame. Kostov says, John says, Olympus should get into full frame. Yeah, I don't think they're doing that. And then Kostov says, is 4K 60p possible with a firmware update? Why Olympus didn't even try with the bigger body? Or does it require... Yeah, you need a new processor. It has to be, 4K, a lot of things have to be hard-coded into a processor. If they didn't hard-code 4K 60p or 10-bit, you're not going to get it in a firmware update. That's why the TruePic 9 processor, I was a little surprised they didn't hard code, or they didn't offer 10-bit video or 4K 60. I would not be surprised though if it isn't already hard coded in to the processor, but they have to come up with the software side, the firmware side, to be able to access those features of that processor. Because we know the CPU, we know that the image processor, the sensor itself, is capable of those things, but the processor, the TruePic 8, didn't have that hard coded. But I wouldn't be surprised if the TruePic 9, and I'm just speculating, does have 10-bit 4K 60 type video hard coded into the processor. It's just a matter of Olympus being able to update their firmware software side to be able to access those settings. So we'll see. Unfortunately, I think the UHS-1, UHS-2, the dual card slot being split like that is hard-coded in. But once I get my hands on an EM1 Mark II, I'm going to put a little flashlight down those slots and see if the pins are available for a UHS-2 slot in both slots. Because if I see the pins for the UHS-2, because it's a double row pins in both slots, that means that it's most likely the TruePic 9 has hard-coded dual UHS-2 slots. They just were not able to implement it on the firmware side as of yet. So we may see some really exciting firmware updates for the EM1 Mark III that will really expand the capabilities of that camera, at least on the video side, and hopefully dual UHS-2. Yeah, I know, Rick. It amazes me that the majority of enthusiasts are willing to keep paying for more and more data capture when they'll never use a fraction of the data they're capturing. Exactly. And that's that, meaning, you take a picture and post it on Instagram, you're capturing probably 5% of what your sensor actually captures once it's posted to Instagram. Oh, John saying, reporting that Sony's production in China is at a standstill due to the coronavirus. Yeah, it's kind of like when Japan had an earthquake. Whenever there's some sort of major event like that, things get into trouble production-wise. Ken's asking, how much troubles have you had with OMDs and having the grips peeling? The M1 Mark II is the only one second time doing repairs to it. I haven't had any problems except on the Pen F with the grip peeling. But on the Pen F, it was only the thumb grip side. And I think that I'm not the only one that's happened to, so this seems like a very common thing. Because this is just glued in. And I bet they use a different kind of glue than they do on this part of the camera. Because underneath this thumb grip is a screw. So they can't use a permanent glue that would glue the screw permanent into the camera. They need to be able to use a less permanent glue, just enough to hold this thumb grip on, but not so much to permanently glue the screw that's underneath it. And I think that's why this thumb grip comes off. Versus, you know, I've never had a problem on any camera with that. But I you know, someone else reported that they are having a problem with, you know, on the M1 Mark II, that part of the grip here, down here, was coming off. Or maybe it was on this side. But anyway, I haven't had an issue. But, you know, for me, I rarely take the M1 Mark II out. It's normally just sitting here on my desk for this live stream, or on my tripod over there. I don't know if that... This tripod here, when I do my tutorials, it rarely goes outside, so it doesn't get a lot of handling. Oh, so Costa's saying he heard that the 4K 60p is grayed out in a pre-production model. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I would be surprised if it wasn't hard-coded in the TruePic 9, 4K 60, and 10-bit. And it's just a matter of getting the firmware side up to speed. Rob, did you check the firmware update? It's for the M1 Mark II, and I think I did do the M5 Mark III update. I haven't done it on the M1 Mark II. It's something to do with the EVF auto switching. I don't think there was anything major, but I haven't really taken the time to go through the menus to see if there's anything different. Like I'm still waiting for them to let you program the mode dial with some more custom functions. Because we only have the one C on the dial, right? Why not be able to reprogram art mode or scene mode on the mode dial to be C2, C3, right? That would be nice. My Pen F thumb grip is lifting. I've already have a replacement. Yeah, see, Ron knows. Coronavirus will also cause product shortages and deliveries and delays, as all spare shipping capacity around China is being diverted to medical. Yeah. Yeah, I just got a Christmas gift from one of the vendors. What did I review for them? Oh, it was their monitor, right? The little 5-inch monitor, or the 7-inch monitor that I reviewed. They sent me some headless wireless headphones as a Christmas gift, and I just got it like the other day. Guys, that means Ali is in the pound seas with the new factory in Vietnam. I have no idea logistically where Vietnam is. I mean, geographically, and what logistics would affect them coronavirus-wise. But if that delays the launch of the EM5 Mark or EM1 Mark III, that would be a problem. I know, like we've heard, it's delayed the CP Plus show launch. Oh, it's nice and toasty in here now. The heater's been on for about an hour. This is good. Has anyone noticed I'm using another light today for my live stream? I have a light on my camera now. Right here. See? It's like facing right on me now instead of, because I noticed with this light off, like this is how it was lit before. The shadows were just a little bit harsh here. So I got this extra light just mounted on top of my camera. And gives my eyes a little sparkle so I don't look so dead. Anyhow. Oh, okay. So I talked about that custom. That was one thing. I talked about the lens and a tiny bit about the M1 Mark III. Okay, good, Siegfried. That's good to know. John saying they got a new TV made in China, and his wife won't let him touch it unless, worried about getting infected. Trust me, that was on my mind when I got the box. Those headphones. Where are they? Anyway, I got some headphones from them. And I was like, man, do I open this up and get coronavirus? Because, viruses, they survive anything unless you really break down the virus itself. Because they're not a living thing, so to speak. Do you have any of the Mark 1? No, I don't have any Mark 1s. And I don't have the EM10 Mark III. So I have no Mark 1s and I don't have an EM10 Mark III. Now the M10 Mark III is coming down in price, so I may pick one up just for tutorial reasons. But it needs to come down a lot more. I need to get it for like 250 bucks or less. And then maybe I'll get one. I mean, it still doesn't make sense business-wise. I'll never make that money back. But it's not about making money. It's really, I feel like there's a lot of EM10 Mark III owners and they're not getting the full benefit from the EM10 Mark II tutorials. That light could potentially give some heat as well. Yeah, a little bit. Let me see. No, I have it set down to like 20%. Because any brighter, I would have a headache, with all this light, especially when right in my face. Ah, don't pop the bubble wrap. The air inside the bubbles is from China. Man, I know we shouldn't be so paranoid, really, because at least here in the US, it's not been an issue. But just in the back of my mind, you start, we should worry about the flu because the flu killed like 10,000 people last year or whatever. Some really number that I never knew it was that high. Wonder what will happen to the EM1 Mark II. Yeah, the EM1 Mark II has come down. I think it's at $12.99 right now here in the US on a regular basis. So that may be the going price forever. And just like the EM5 Mark III now, I see it for $9.99. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's at that price more often than not. Yeah, an EM10 Mark IV by the end of this year? Possibly. Yeah, they're going to keep it at $13.99, the M1 Mark II. But I think right now I saw it for $12.99. Yeah. See, $12.99 for the M1 Mark II. That's the price I've been seeing the last few weeks since the launch, or sort of rumor of the EM1 Mark III. Yeah, definitely get the M1 Mark II. It's an awesome camera, Roberto. No question. Yeah, flu season kills 10 to 12,000. Right. There hasn't been one here yet on Corona. Wow, 80,000 people in that season? Wow, that's crazy. I've only gotten the flu shot once in my life. People are always nagging on me to go get a flu shot. I think in my whole life I've had the flu once. And that was it's about 5 years ago. I had it once. It sucked. Yeah, Roberto wishes the M5 Mark III was a metal silver. Yeah. Yeah, they should come out with an EM5 Mark III M, right? Metal version. And that'll really bring a lot more people back. They should make an EM5 Mark III M with a regular tilt like this instead of flip around. EM5 Mark III M with a tilty screen in silver. That's metal. You know, it'd be like a special edition, but you know, they'd only have to make like 1,000 of them, right? Why do people buy from Amazon? They're so expensive. Well, the trick to buying from Amazon is you need to clear all the cookies in your computer, in your browser, and then shop at other stores that have the same product. Like in my case would be Best Buy or Staples, right? Those are the two places I go shop online. And then you go back to Amazon and they will match or better the price that you find in those other places automatically. I don't know how they do it, but I know I've cleared cookies before and go back and the price is lower. So they know somehow where you've been shopping. Maybe Google Chrome is sharing my data with them, but it's fine if I get a better price. Wow, Spanish flu, 50 million. That's crazy. But yeah, Roberto, I mean, a metal camera, some people, they like that, right? Why don't I have a lens on this? Dang it. I see a piece of dust in there. Now I gotta blow it out later, but... Tip for Rob, stop using Chrome and download Brave for your phone and computer. No ads, it's 6 times faster than Chrome and no... Well, you know, Sonny, maybe, but because of YouTube and some other things that I do with the Google Office, Google Docs, I need the functionality of all those other things that Google offers, particularly with YouTube and Google Docs. And the ads don't bother me. Like I said, I try to use it to my advantage. And cost of B&H is, yeah, if I don't want to pay tax, yeah. They have that credit card that gives the tax back or something. Yeah, Roberto, the stability, having a heavier camera is good for stability if there's no image stabilization built in the camera. But with the Ibis and Olympus cameras, the stabilization is moot. You know, the weight. You don't need a heavy camera anymore. I mean, I hold 5 seconds, you know, handheld with my EM5 Mark III, 5-6 seconds all the time. I mean, I have to be like this, you know, full on, you know, tripod mode with my hands and head, but yeah, don't worry about it. We need ads to support our favorite YouTubers. Oh, thanks. I forgot about that. The ad money's so minuscule, but yeah. Okay, I'll try it. I'll try it. Why not? You know? Adorama, no tax. Oh, hey, Lauren, how are you? Well, you've been awful quiet today. Normally, you're like full-on chat mode here. Brave pays you. Wow. Now we're kind of getting into the same, the same thing as using Chrome, right? You got to look at ads. Yeah, the Paybu card, whatever they call that thing. Yeah, you know, the tip on Amazon is basically I wouldn't say any supplier, you know, go to the major ones. Whether you plan to buy from them or not, go to the major ones. Like for me, is Best Buy and Staples. I know those cookies somehow influence Amazon. I had a Canon 5D with Pro Zooms. The weight was a total deal kill. Yeah, I know. That's why I just can't go back to. That's why when I see these D6 announcements and 1DX, I don't care. So, to Froze, in response to Froze video about, you know, Olympus released a camera, who cares? I'm like, Nikon released the D6, Canon released the 1DX Mark something, who cares? I mean, I don't care. I mean, in the same way he doesn't care about the M1, you know, the Olympus coming out, I don't care about the D6 or the 1DX. I should do a video response, right, to his remark there. AdGuard is pretty good. I guess I don't have a problem with ads though. Like I said, it kind of supports the channel or website or whatever you're watching, in a very small way, but it does promote that. And then, I mean, there was a time, like especially back in the early 2000s, where when we were using like Windows 95 or Windows 7 point, well, no, more like Windows 95, so it must have been late 90s and early 2000s. Oh my God, the pop-ups that would come out, it was insane. It was insane. You would have to like arrange your whole screen. Well, anyway, it was a pain in the butt. But these days, you know, Google Chrome manages the pop-ups blocking and all the security risks that I worry about, because Google Chrome is supposed to be hack-free, and I probably have about 30 or 40 things saved in there, password-wise, encrypted, and it just helps me a lot. So, and I found that because my one, you know, I had to do some tech support for which I need to go see today. I was supposed to go last week to this client, and they as soon as I finished the live stream, I checked my text messages because I was going to let them know I was on my way, and they said, "Don't come, you know, something came up." And I'm like, "All right." So now I got to go today to the client to deal with tech support. But one of the issues they were having was their websites were not coming up that they like to go to. And it turns out their ad blocking software that they ran, I don't know which, I can't remember which one it was. uBlock sounds familiar though. But their ad blocking software was blocking the ads, and then the website wouldn't come up at all. So I turned off their ad blocking software, and then they were able to access their website. And it wasn't like a website that you would go to. It was a subscription they had to a website. I think it was, well, I don't want to say, but they were subscribed to a website. So the website had a paywall, but they couldn't even get through the paywall without turning off the ad blocker. So that's, that's just some of the things. And another friend of mine, he had an ad blocker on, and he was not able to upload a particular image to something, because he's also a photographer, and his ad blocker was blocking his ability to upload to something. So the ad blocker is kind of really, it's a little bit more integrated into your browser or whatever you're looking at, more so than, for in ways that you may not realize, and affecting your online experience. So I just don't like using ad blockers, mainly for that reason. It's affecting my user experience. And if there's supposed to be ads on a page, it's fine by me. But anyway, just my 2 cents. The ad blockers I have run into trouble with from a experience wise. Yeah, I use Windows. Using AdBlock Plus and Chrome works great. Okay, that's good to know. I might put the ad blocker like on my tablet, because I use Chrome on my tablet, my Android tablet. And oh my God, my tablet, I mean, it's not an expensive tablet. It's a Samsung Galaxy Tab A. But browsing through that thing is a pain in the butt. And it's because all the ads are loading, and it's not a very fast processor in there. I mean, it plays YouTube fine. It does, it goes to my forums that I want to go to, like MU43, not 43 Rumors, but MU43, it pulls up just fine. But 43 Rumors, it struggles with. Well, anyway. Yeah, the ecosystem of Google is vast. Yeah, I'm really integrated into the Google side. Almost to the point that I thought about getting a Google Chrome tablet, but I didn't like the screen on the tablet, or Google Chrome netbook, whatever it's called. The screen on it was horrible. So I said, screw that, I'll just stick with a laptop. All right, I'm going to end the live stream here in a few minutes, because I do need to head out to a client. Let me check my text. Maybe the battery's going to die anyway. It's only about a 3-hour battery. Let's see. Yeah, no text from my client, so I do need to head out here soon. Use the Adam Hill real version of uBlock there too. Okay. Like I said, you guys can try, people that are here. I appreciate all the recommendations. I don't have a problem with ad blockers though. But I may do it on my tablet. I'll see. I'll have to see if it helps at all, because it's painfully slow to navigate web pages on my tablet because of all the ads. That's good to know, Rick. Yeah, the offer price goes down and down. I mean, it's partially because sometimes when you click on a link, it's an affiliate link, so they have to build in the affiliate commission. And then once that window expires from the point that you tried something to the point that they purchase something, they can discount it more, right? So, and you know, for me, it's like when I look at something at full price, I have to decide at full price if it's worth it for me. If it's something I can wait, like in your case, you can wait on Capture One, then I'll wait. But like the EM1 Mark II, or I'm sorry, the EM5 Mark III, I had no doubt in my mind that that camera was going to come down in price later after the launch date. And I didn't expect it this soon, but it didn't bother me because at the time I purchased it, it was worth every penny. And I have no regrets about it coming down in price, or no qualms with it coming down in price shortly after I bought it. And just like the M1 Mark III, if I can get, if I can go to the launch and save on the sales tax and get a $200 trade-in bonus and trade in a few things, I may get the M1 Mark III in a couple of weeks, because I really like the idea of the handheld high-res shot mode. I've been practicing a little bit with the tripod handheld high-res shot this week, and it makes a difference. I mean, the reason I was using it just to test the sharpness of certain lenses, and then I was like, this is actually a lot nicer image, a lot sharper image, I should say. So I may do, and if I can get it in a handheld form, that and the Live ND, you can be very creative with that in ways other than just waterfalls. Those two things kind of, and the image stabilization, when I was using the M1X, it was amazing. It's so much better than the M1 Mark II. So if the M1 Mark III has that image stabilization from the M1X or better, those things are enough for me to really consider trading something in at this point. Because where else are you going to get 50 megapixel images for $1,800? You have to spend quite a bit more. I think actually the G9 might have a high-res shot mode. I don't know. But to buy an actual true 50 megapixel sensor camera, you're like at $3,000 plus, right? So, you never get hacked. Famous last words. Thanks, Eddie. I'm glad you could come in. Yeah, the Chromebooks are great. I just didn't like the screen. They seem kind of bland to me. I was thinking about getting like a one of those Microsoft tablet things. What do they call them? They're basically laptops, but they're like the size of a tablet. I forget what they're called. Huh. Yeah, Microsoft Surface. Thank you, Kostov. I was looking at those, but that's a purchase I can much wait on. I'd much rather buy a camera than a Microsoft Surface because they're about the same price. Yeah, Ken, you're gonna get a Mark III. That's right. I'm seriously considering it. I mean, I didn't, like I said, I like to wait a day to get the gas out of my system. But what I found was the gas gets worse the more I think about it. Because I don't need a Mark III, right? But you can justify it like I am. Oh, the better image stabilization, the Live ND, the handheld high-res shot. These are all things that you justify in your mind that you need or want to spend the money on a camera, when honestly I don't need any of those things, right? But it just makes sense when you make it, you force it to make sense in your own mind to justify the purchase when you have gas. Oh, especially if I can get a good deal, right? They got that little $200 trade-in bonus. So I'm thinking I can trade in something. Maybe, God, I don't know, my Pen PL8 or I don't know what I'd trade in. It's killing me. But I'll trade something in. And then usually at the launch events, they waive the sales tax as well. So that's another 6% I'm saving on a $1,500, $1,800 camera. So that's another $100 off, basically. So now I'm like $300 off the list price. So I'm at $1,499 plus my trade-in value. So if I can get in the camera for $1,000 or less, I don't know. It's killing me. Today I found my cat has been sleeping on it. That's funny. Adorama and B&H are camera stores. Even Best Buy like the support. I use Amazon for some things, but fear the takeover of retail. Yeah, Lauren, me too. You know, I try to buy from my local camera store everything I can. But the little knick-knack things like the Chinese-made grips or what else do I buy? The extension tubes. You know, there's a lot of things that I can't buy from my local camera store that I want to get. So always support your local camera store. I support District Camera and Ace Photo here in my area. So shout out to District Camera. Shout out to Ace Photo. But and then Best Buy I go to as a last resort. Like when they had that deal on the M5 Mark II, $699 with the 14-150, you know, I had to do it. Siegfried says, just do it, Rob. The complete Ollie community is waiting for your EM1 Mark III videos. I'd argue they're still waiting for my EM10 Mark III videos because I haven't bought that camera yet either. Ooh, okay, my voice is starting to crack now too. Yeah, Patrick. Yeah, no local camera stores. That's unfortunate. You're not alone. I mean, there's a lot of places where people would have to drive hours to get to one, and it's not worth it. And what I like about the camera stores, I'm not positive about Ace Photo, but I know District Camera is family owned and operated. I'm always seeing like, you know, one of the family members there, and then years later their kid is working there. It's really, I mean, I don't know. That's what I really like about small businesses is they're really, you know, they're just really part of life, you know, part of someone's life and how they live. And I try to support that, you know, as much as I can. Yeah, if you don't support the local guy, you won't have a local guy. Yeah, Roy, how are you? I'm sorry you're late. I'm about to end it here in a minute. I mean, either me or the camera. I guarantee the camera will die before I do. We're at 3 hours. This camera's been on for about 3 hours and 10 minutes because I turned the camera on about 5-10 minutes before I started the live stream. But okay, I'm going to end it here. I know there's a lot of people still here, but I really appreciate everyone that came in. And like I said, on Thursday, I'm going to have a live stream with Maddie, Solanto Blog, and then Emily from Micro Four Nerds. So tune in for Thursday live stream. And then March 1st, I'm going to have the live stream with Robin and Peter, I hope, to do a full-on EM1 Mark III live stream, and we're going to talk all about that camera. So thanks again to everybody. We'll see you again on Thursday or Sunday.